We all have a love language. Instead of reading about yours through a book, you can discover yours through your birth chart. When you understand your unique love language and that of others in your life, you can have happier, healthier relationships. And our next guest is going to help you have more harmonious relationships in all areas of your life. I am so excited about our guest today. Her name is Naomi Simpson. She was introduced to me by a very dear friend, and she's like, you have to meet this person. She's wonderful. And of course I did, and I agree, and I know you will too. Naomi is an astrologer who is also a spiritual sherpa. She has 4 planets in Scorpio. So if you know anything about Scorpio, they are very geared toward intimate, deep relationships. And that is what Naomi helps people, I don't know what the word is, achieve, connect with, attract into their lives, be ready for, be open to. So without further ado, Naomi, hello and welcome.
Thank you so much, Kari. So nice to be here. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to connect with you.
See, everything's about connection with you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. 4 planets of in Scorpio, including Venus, who wants deep connection. Yes, absolutely.
So I know in my experience from doing intuitive readings, 2 big questions, career and love, right? That's really, well, ultimately it's love. What drives everyone is we all want love, and we want to love our careers too. And I believe as a relationship coach, you also help with that as well, because isn't everything about relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. Even when we're working, we have relationships with our colleagues. So
Yeah.
Even when I have people working with me to improve a situation at work, it still boils down to our relationship with ourselves and how we're able to show up in a relationship with others based on how our relationship with ourselves is.
So can you tell us more about what you do? You call yourself a spiritual sherpa. So can you explain what that means exactly?
Absolutely. So all that Scorpio energy in my chart, I love to guide people along their transformation journey. And as a professional astrologer, I always say to clients, when you are going through a challenging time, keep going, as the saying goes. And also, you want a Scorpio by your side, because
Yes, you do.
we're not afraid of anything. We are afraid of things, but we will face our fear and take action anyway. And so while my clients are going to be doing the work, they're going to be doing the heavy lifting on their transformational journey. I am going to be right there with them, and I will also be working to guide them. But I'm also going to do the work along with them.
I'm curious because we use the word transformation a lot. And of course, that's a key word of Scorpio. Can you explain what a transformational journey is exactly?
So it depends. When people reach out to me, typically their relationships are breaking down. And so they are trying to figure out, do I stay? Do I go? Can I change this situation? Can I improve this? So when we're working together, the first thing I like to do is sort of identify, okay, what's the old story at play and where did this come from? So we go very Scorpio, dig deep, but we're not going to stay there. So we want to understand that, because we want to understand how this is affecting your attachment style, your communication preferences, that kind of thing. And then I want to actually start focusing on the future. So this is your reality. Is this working for you? And help people get in touch with their needs so they can say, yes, this is, or no, it's not. And if it's not working, what vision do you want to claim in relationship? And then help them build the skills they need to actually get there.
I'm curious, in your experience, are most people needing to stay in a relationship and trying to leave early, or are most people needing to leave and don't have the faith in themselves to do that? Or is it a mixed bag? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's a great question. And it's definitely a mixed bag. So it is, I always say to people, because one of the questions I get is, okay, well, I'm ready to do this work, but my partner isn't. So should I bother? And I always say yes, because first of all, when we show up differently and when we start to learn new skills and we're able to navigate conflict with more ease and we're able to just make requests around I need this and that type of thing, our partner then often they see us raising the bar and they will meet us there. They will start to try to also step into things, or the experience might be that they don't step up to where we need
Yeah.
them to be. And in that case, we're going to get clarity and say, you know what, this has run its course and in beauty it is finished and it's time for me to step away.
So while we're talking, I want to address both sets. And I also want to make sure that we're talking to people who don't have partners, romantic partners, and understand that this can apply to all relationships, including friends and
Yes.
sometimes even family members. I think I read that a lot of people, I don't know, 1 in 5 have an estranged family member, which I find, rough because sometimes it's appropriate to step away from
Yes.
family members even. And sometimes it's appropriate to try to accept people who they are. And there's just so much, right? Relationships are complicated and, and not at all like what we see in fairy tales or in movies. I'm curious. Have you ever seen a relationship that was like a fairy tale like thing? Like what people, what people romanticize?
They might appear that way
Yeah.
on the outside. I mean, I certainly in the past, I have myself given the illusion of, this is the fantasy. But, I always feel what is happening behind closed doors is the true story, and we don't ever know what it really is. So, yeah, I think that like there's no real fairy tale because we are human beings, and so we come with all sorts of baggage, we come with all sorts of preferences. Our preferences may be at odds with the preference of our partner, and so it's sort of like, okay, how do I reconcile all of this, and learning how to balance and what's a priority, what's a non-negotiable, like, and there are situations where we have a non-negotiable and it's a non-negotiable in another direction for our partner. This may be something we can't overcome, but how can we explore whether or not we can or not? There's the potential, so we have to kind of unpack, how important is this? This is a high priority, and can we address it? Can we arrive at some sort of mutually agreeable solution?
What do you say to people that are trying to change their partners or anyone in their life, their mother, their siblings, what would you say to someone like that?
So I would say stay in your own boat. Like if you think about how difficult it is to make a big change for yourself, I think that it's really when we then consider the possibility of like changing someone else, it's a fool's errand. Other people don't change because we want them to. They have to be prepared to change. And a perfect example of this is when we are in partnership with somebody who is in the grips of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
If they are not prepared to address the addiction, we have to be honest with ourselves whether we are enabling the addiction, or and if we're giving them all the support to access the services and they're choosing not to, then again, we have a decision to make, because that might be a time where we have healthy boundaries and say, I can't be in an intimate partnership with you until you address this, and I'm going to love you from a distance. And that's a healthy boundary.
I feel like addiction is such a very obvious thing that we see in terms of enabling. In my experience, I've seen so much where like myself, for instance, am way more codependent than I realized. Cause it's like, oh, I'm a strong person and I'm so independent. But especially empaths, I feel like there's emotional addictions that we pander to and enable and feed. And I feel like a lot of times we try to protect our partners from themselves. And I don't mean, again, and I want to address everyone, whether you're in a romantic partnership or not. I mean, just people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many times are we really carrying the load for people when we're trying to protect our loved ones from experiencing their own pain and their own karmic burden?
Oh, 100%. And that to me is like, I can give you an example of this that happened in my life
Mm-hmm.
this past week.
Oh,
And not with, yeah, not with a partner. So, we especially, I'm going to blame it on my Virgo moon. So I have
same.
Virgo
I have
moon
a
that wants to, yeah, I want to help everybody. I am a fixer. Because I have so much water in my chart, I am very empathetic and really feel people's energy and their suffering. And, there are moments where I'm meeting with clients and I may start to feel overwhelmed by their emotion, and I have to stay very present and remember I cannot be of service to this person when I am overwhelmed by my emotions. And so this is not mine to bear. I need to be present to be able to guide them. But to go back to my example, I was having dinner with a group of girlfriends, and a couple of them were experiencing really difficult situations and describing them to us. And my other friend, who's also a Virgo moon,
mm-hmm.
she and I immediately jumped into offering advice, making suggestions. Have you tried this? Da, 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 da. And even in the moment, I wasn't aware of that. And the next day, I was reflecting on it and I thought, how disempowering was that for my friends? Because what I'm saying to them through that behavior is, I don't think you can handle this. And so your pain's making me uncomfortable and I'm going to fix it for you. And so the next day I owned it. I, said, good morning, everybody. So great to connect last night. And I want to acknowledge that I went into fixer, and I'm so sorry I did that, because that must have been a really disempowering experience. And I know that you know what's best for you. And, often in relationships, like I have this dynamic with my daughter. She's just turned 20. And so when we talk and she's telling me about stuff, I will say, are you telling me this because you need somebody to hear it
Mm-hmm.
and you just want to vent? Or are you telling me this because you want me to weigh in and offer some advice? And I'm pretty good about doing that with her, but I sometimes still forget with other people in my life.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to remember, again, in any relationship, romantic or familial or friends, that it's okay for us to just listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
be in that situation where we allow them to experience their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
When we're trying to fix people in our minds and hearts, where we're wanting to help them, we're actually not always helping them. We're just protecting them from their own karmic and spiritual lessons.
Yeah, and I feel like we're not even protecting them. We're just delaying it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, it's coming. So, it's like when you see, oh, here comes Saturn to like a really important part of your chart. Here we go. I mean, every Virgo has had Saturn opposite some part of their chart in the last year and a half, which has been, it's a really hard time of life, and it can feel
I didn't notice with 5 planets in Virgo.
I know I keep saying, like, how are my Pisces friends doing? Because it's pretty hard having Saturn on those points of your chart, and my Virgo friends as well, because Saturn opposing you is this tug of war with the Lord of time and karma. That's not a good time, not a good time.
Well, I feel like every planet's getting, I mean, every sign is getting something right now because
Oh, yeah.
in general, we're going through a time of transition and we're finishing up this Libra Aries, eclipse nodal thing, which is about us all learning how to not be codependent and how to be more self-actualizing. And in 2025, of course, we're going to have a lot of Aries, which is all about learning how to be really self-motivated without being selfish.
Yes.
Which I think is coming up in everybody's lives right now. So because that's what the planets are doing, and we live it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And to me, I love having the eclipses and the nodes in Libra and Aries because it's what needs to go. What unhealthy Libra energy do we need to let go of? And what is the best of Aries that I can step into? And I have my Mars in a really very prominent place in my chart, but in a sign he struggles in. So to look where is Mars really effective in Aries? What is that wonderful Aries energy, and how can I bring more of that into my life? And where do I not have it naturally, and I need to cultivate it?
So can you talk to us about what Aries energy is and how we can all incorporate it and how this can help our relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a North Node in Aries energy is brave, it's bold, it initiates things. It's the cardinal fire sign. It kicks off the zodiac. So it's the beginning of the zodiacal new year. And so it's not afraid to take action. I always say it's like getting the party started. And with the fire signs, when I'm looking at an elemental balance in somebody's chart, I want to notice like fire, earth, air, and water. What's the balance? How might they be experiencing that? And if they have heavy fire or no fire, we need to ignite the fire and give their fire like a healthy outlet. So usually, if I have somebody who's got tons and tons of fire and it's being expressed as anger or aggression, I will prescribe like physical movement, have a dance party in your kitchen, do Kundalini, Tai Chi, Qigong, because we want to get your fire ignited, but we want to give it like a healthy expression. And then we look at the South Node in Libra. What areas of Libra are not working for me that I need to let go of? So that to me is unhealthy codependence, people pleasing, not speaking up for your preferences. I have a Libra rising, so I know all about if my family's like, oh, let's watch a movie. Oh, wait, what do you want to watch? And I'm like, oh, what do you want to watch? No,
Yeah.
I'm allowed to have preferences. I'm allowed to say, I want to eat this kind of food. I want to do, it's just, this isn't being, as you said, it's not necessarily selfish. It's saying I'm a person, my needs matter. I can make requests. And also I'm still willing to hear yours. It's not my way or the highway.
Right.
But it is understanding that I need to embody that, like have a healthy relationship with myself and know this is what I want.
So you've mentioned preferences a couple of times.
Okay.
Speaking your preferences. And so I'd like to talk more about it since it's obviously something that's come up in your sessions several times or maybe all the time, right? Do you think people don't speak their preferences or do people think they're speaking their preferences and aren't really? What is your experience with that, with what you've seen?
Okay, that's a great question. And I think that often, particularly with women, we've been socially conditioned to be totally disconnected from our preferences and our needs. So we don't even know what we want. We haven't taken the time to reflect on, and I would say this applies to like all of culture because we live in this very toxic, consumerist, capitalist, heteropatriarchy.
All the things.
And all the things. And it says, do this, and here's your checklist. And once you do, and, oh, and by the way, that target is always moving. So you're never going to get there. You're never going to reach it.
Right.
You're never going to feel like you're good enough.
Right.
And by the way, your job as a woman is to take care of everybody else and put everybody else's needs ahead of yours, and to be, think about as like, I know as a girl, I was always praised and rewarded for being nice, for helping, for, the whatever. And so we become so disconnected from like, what do I even want? I'm just ticking all the boxes, doing all the things, but I feel empty. I feel disconnected. And so to start with, we need to just stop, slow down, go within, and start to identify, what do I want? What am I seeking in life? What makes me feel alive? What gives me purpose? And also, what do I want to say like a hard no to? What is a pass for me? What is no longer serving that needs to go? And use that like the Aries energy to be like, and we're done. Aries is, it's that cutting, like, and I'm cutting you off. It's over, right? So,
by the way,
that's the healthy Aries.
I want to emphasize that we do have men that listen to this as well. And so this cultural theme we're talking about affects everyone.
Absolutely. Like the society we live in is also extremely damaging to men. Like the messages that they've also internalized and been given since infancy of like, don't cry, you can't do this. The only emotion you're allowed to have is anger.
Yeah.
Those things also don't serve.
So maybe men don't know what their needs are either.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Does anyone know what their needs are? Quick question.
I think some people do, but again, I think because if you've stopped and you listen to yourself, and if you're really tuned into your body and you're trusting your intuition, I just listened to a podcast of yours all about listening to your intuition.
Yes, I have many of them now about that, right?
Yeah, and but so many of us, again, when we're younger, we are sort of socialized out of that. And so we're doing the whole rational, very cerebral brain work around like, oh, I've got to weigh this. It's very Libra. I'm going to weigh this and weigh that and then make a decision. And we're so disconnected from the messages we're getting, that intuitive knowing, that saying a big yes to something, or like oh, no way, absolutely not.
So how does someone, I really want to dig into this because it's like, oh, just ask yourself what you want. Like, it does sound simple, but there's obviously a reason like that we're not doing it, a lot of us in depth. How is it when we're in any relationship, again, romantic, with your parents, when there's so much emotional weight on your responsibility to that person? How do you do that? How do you extract yourself and say this is what I really want? How does that work? What's the process of that?
So do you mean in terms of like, how do you
really feeling like,
yourself?
How do I have all this pressure to make sure that I'm doing the right thing for this person, or, this person expects something of me. How do I go into myself and ask myself what my needs are? Like, is there a process of like extracting your energy from other people? Is there a process of like just taking time to yourself? In your experience, what's the best way that people can really tune into their needs when all these emotional burdens and expectations are weighing on you?
So I think there's a couple of steps. And so the first is to clarify, you're talking about like, oh, I feel this pressure because I need to do this for this person. And so part of it is clarifying, like, is that actually their expectation? Because often we've made up a whole story around somebody else And we don't know if it's true. We're just making assumptions. And so begin by clarifying, like, hey, you said this to me. I just want to clarify. Do you, again, like, are you asking for my help with this? Somebody might be telling you, for example, like, oh, hey, Kari, what are you doing this weekend? And you're like, oh, I don't have any plans yet. Oh yeah, like I'm moving on Saturday. God, I can't believe I got to move, blah, blah, blah. And immediately you're going into like, are they asking me to help them move? Oh my God, I hate helping my friends move. And you're making this big story up and you don't even know yet. So in that kind of a scenario, I would say, clarify, ask them, be direct. And, part of the reason we want to be direct in our communication, and when I say direct, I don't mean be like rude and abrasive and aggressive, but being clear. It's establishing the rules of a game. Once we know the rules of the game, we can actually play. And so that's the first part, is being clear with the other person. And part of that too is, you're staying in your own lane, instead of making like this big story. And then on your own part, it's noticing how things are landing for you.
Right.
So, you say, hey, I'm moving this weekend, and immediately I'm feeling like this. So I notice in my body, like, can you tell I really hate helping people move? Like,
yeah, moving is traumatic in some ways. Yeah.
So it's noticing, like, is this a yes or a no in my body? And I know, I have a monthly women's circle that I co-facilitate, and we work a lot with the people in our group to help them work on developing their intuition. And learning your yes and no is as simple as, you can do an exercise where, you close your eyes, tune into your body, and I'll just ask you questions. And it can be starting with like, is my name, like, if I was doing it with you, I'd say, like, is your name Kari?
Yeah.
Do you have red hair? Asking you a bunch and you just notice like what the yes feels like. Yes. And then I could say something like, are you standing up? Are you driving a car? Like things that are obvious yes and no's, so that you can begin to pay attention to, oh, this is what a yes and a no feels like in my body. And then we start to use it. You can use it really simply, like things around, when you're grocery shopping, like, is this food supportive of me? Is this something I should be buying? And notice, tune in, and then you just keep extrapolating it until you start to become so in tune with your body that when you meet that person and you get the signal from your body that this is a get out of here, this is a hard pass, that you honor that. And you're like, this person is not for me. And peace out. We're done, know? So that's sort of how I would suggest that people start. Is that what you were asking?
Yes. And it's funny because literally we'll probably repeat this exercise in every single podcast episode because it's that important.
Yeah.
Every theme comes back to, don't just ask your head, don't ask 20,000 people, go back in your body. And how do you feel? So then what happens when somebody gets that, no, I don't want to help you move, and this is someone really close to you? What do you do?
You're allowed to express that.
How?
No is a complete sentence.
Do you really just say to like someone really close to you, no?
You could just say, like, I'm really sorry. I can't help you. I can't help you move. It depends. You have to assess, but you do not have to give them an explanation. You're allowed to just say no. That's not your preference. If they pursue it and you really feel but you're not obligated to explain your preferences. You're just allowed to have them.
That can be hard for people.
Absolutely. If you felt like, if it was a really close friend and you were like, there is no way I am schlepping your couch around or moving your TV, but you're willing to support them in another way, you could offer. So if you really felt, I don't want to do this, and I still want to support and love this person, you could say, listen, I cannot help you with the physical move. Would it be helpful if I brought you pizza for lunch while you're in the, to help you, or something like that? Or would it be helpful if so whatever you felt was something you were willing to do, but you're allowed to have a preference and you can express that preference.
Again, I think it's important to emphasize that is something that needs to be communicated.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's that you can deliver your message in a kind way, not in a, you're shutting it down and like just ghosting them, like, no, and then that's it.
Yeah.
You can still, if you feel that you want to, you can explain why. Like, oh, my body's not up to it or whatever. I don't feel I have the capacity to do this, but I can help you this way.
So to recap, it's very important to know your preferences, and to know your preferences, take a moment, go inside your body and ask yourself, is this what I want? Is this in my highest and best? Does this feel good for me? And notice what your body feels like and honor that. And then honoring that is expressing it cleanly, clearly, directly, without excuses.
Right.
Because you have nothing to apologize about.
Exactly.
Great.
So simple. So simple.
So when we try to change people, I want to get back to that. Does expressing your preferences help you, instead of trying to change someone? Does it help in some way elevate that relationship?
I think it can, because I think so maybe not necessarily, well, actually, no, expressing your preferences, but for starters, just being aware of your preferences and seeing, is this relationship meeting my most basic needs? And if it's not, that is also like, oh, okay, so my non-negotiables are being like danced on here, and this isn't working. So it is, that clarification can help us be like, no, this isn't working for me. And then expressing the preference, it's really important to me for me to feel trust and respect. And when you do this, I don't feel that trust and respect. Would you be willing to stop this behavior or whatever? And so the person you're just focusing on how it makes you feel, what is important to you, what your need is. So you're identifying your needs, you're making a request around it, and again, really focusing on your feelings. People can't argue with our feelings. You can't tell me, well, you're not mad. No, that's my feeling. You don't know what I'm the only one who knows my feelings. And then the other person has an opportunity to say, oh, maybe they would be like, I didn't realize it was having this impact on you. And I'm so sorry. I definitely want you to feel respected, and I want trust to be here. So yes, I'm willing to try this. But they could also say, okay, well, I'm not willing to do this, but I'm willing to do this. Would this work? And that's the negotiation, where then we start to go, okay, there's a bit of a dance. And that is what, it's the dance of intimacy.
Yes. And so a healthy relationship, you're not making demands on them. You're expressing your desires. It's like a call and response. You're not withholding your desires or needs. You're not demanding them. You're making a request. And in a healthy relationship, you're honoring each other's requests and needs. And so to know if it's to leave is if they don't do that, right?
Yeah.
And to stay are people that you can do that with.
Exactly. And because when we get into these absolute all or nothing, like you have to do this or I'm out of here or whatever, like I in my mind, when I hear people talking about describing those scenarios, I feel like a little flap of skin just blew over my ears and I can't hear you. Because if somebody's telling me like, you always feel that you always do this, you never do this, that's so alienating.
Yeah.
And that is like, that's one of the like sort of four horsemen of the apocalypse, like in terms of relationship. And it's going nowhere. You're not going to make any progress there because there's no goodwill.
So very important, because I think a lot of empaths, especially, withhold their feelings. We don't express them, and we want people to just guess them.
Yes.
So a healthy relationship is expressing your needs and giving people an opportunity to reciprocate and express theirs. And then that's how you go. That's fantastic. I think you just solved world peace. So, thank you for that. I want to, ask a little bit now, slightly divergent here, but, relevant, hopefully, because you do astrology.
Yes, I do.
And that's the foundation of what you do. So I'm curious what shows up, like how you can see people's relationship styles in their charts.
Yes.
How is that? Because a lot of people are like, is this predestined? Like, how does this work?
Oh, that's such a wonderful, juicy, juicy question. And so there's a couple of answers to that. So I love astrology, and it's one of my absolutely favorite modalities as a Scorpio for effecting transformation. And your horoscope, your birth chart is like this blueprint of you, and it's also this wonderful calendar of the cycle you're in. And so when I'm working with clients, I definitely use their horoscopes. And most of my clients, even if they're not interested initially in astrology, I win them over. And
Right.
because I just show them how, I can see all these preferences based on your moon sign, which shows me what makes you feel safe and secure, what comes naturally to you, your Venus, which is what you love and value, what you're attracted to, your Mercury, which is your communication style, and Mars also, which is like your passion and your drive. And so that's not even including your sun or rising, which are like some of the most important parts of your chart.
Right.
And so then that in itself is like, okay, this tells me a lot about your attachment style and how you communicate. And so knowing that about ourselves is so helpful because, for example, I have my Venus in Scorpio, which is like deep interconnection, really could be very toxic and codependent, but really wants like intimacy, and like I'm just like a little barnacle. And my partner has their Venus in the sign of Aquarius, which is like, give me my space. I need to be free. And so for me to know that our Venuses are so different and are in what we call a square, so they're butting heads, is incredibly helpful because I was able to not make that story about me. I didn't take it personally. It was like, this is just how this person is wired, and I can accept that about them without it being like a melting down point. And so it's so helpful just to know how I'm wired, but then to look at somebody else's chart. And then one of my favorite kinds of horoscopes to do is a synastry reading, where I'm looking at my chart and your chart, how they work together, the effortless gifts, the challenges. Also, our relationship has its own chart, which is a composite chart, which are like super effective to look at. And even looking at the composite chart to be like, oh, the transits that are happening out the sky, they're also happening to your relationship as its entity on its own. So so factoring all of those things in consultation, like synastry readings are magic and so effective for people to really get insight. And that doesn't just have to be with a partner. It can be, I love doing synastry readings for parents and their kids. And it's just or siblings. It's so helpful.
Synastry meaning like how your charts work
Interact.
together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that in synastry readings, more opposites attract, or more like people very much the same, or a little blend of both, or how does that work typically?
I think it's really interesting because it's a bit of a blend. And sometimes I've seen clients who have like really strong relationships, and yet they don't have a lot of affinity in the chart. And I think the charts are almost like a jigsaw puzzle where I'm missing an element in my chart, or I'm missing this energy, and that person brings it. And so you really see like, oh, I'm all fire and air, and this person is all earth and water, or, somebody who's very cerebral and this person's very grounded. And so you see the complementary nature. But I do, almost universally, when you talk to somebody about, they're like, oh, what sign's your partner? And then I look at, what sign is on the cusp of their seventh house to see.
Seventh house meaning relationship and marriage for people who don't speak astro.
Yes, sorry about that. And so, I want to look at like, okay, so what's going on there? And so often, even if it's not the sign, it's the element. So, you might have fire on the cusp. So that would mean like you're attracted to somebody more fiery or with a hot, like a strong Mars or something like that. So it's really, or strong Leo energy, whatever. The fire signs being Leo, Sag, and Aries. So it's so interesting to look at it. It's just so clarifying
and so accurate. I find astrology shockingly accurate. Do
Oh
you
yeah.
feel that these people who typically have an opposite attract type of chart, is that conflict sometimes, or is it an easy blend typically? Because I know from my experience, at least the people that come to me and even in my own life, you're attracted to someone who's going to give you the energy that you need. And sometimes you rebel against that.
Yes, absolutely. I think again it's sort of a combination. And so I do think that the opposition is an easier polarity. It doesn't make sense because an opposition in a birth chart, like one planet opposite the other, there can be an unresolvable tension there. So that can be a really hard, heavy energy. But I do feel like it's like a magnet pull between people. So you definitely see that. I think the more challenging one is the square because it's more conflict. And so unless they're very skilled at navigating conflict, they're just going to be scrapping all the time. Um, but I do think that a lot of times when we look at like soulmate sort of contracts, and our soulmates are not always romantic partners,
Right.
but you see a lot of, conjunction energy there where two planets are side by side or, a really important planet in one chart is on an angle of the other chart. And so you do see this, and there's, the conjunction is more of like those energies are blending and merging. And I see that a lot. And it's really like, ooh, that's really, yeah.
It's amazing to me how these things are somewhat predestined, right? Our connections with people, when you see it in a chart, or even when you're looking at your own birth chart to see how you respond to the world, it's not random.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a meaning behind it. We're drawn to people to help us grow, to be supported, but also to be challenged in certain ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at, like, I've looked at family charts, and it's like so fascinating where you see a signature coming from generation to generation to generation. And it's just so interesting. And you really realize, like, oh, this is like this family is in, the school of Libra. This family's in the school of Pisces,
Yes.
or whatever. And, to me, it's sort of that whole, it makes me just think about when we're doing our healing journey, when we're doing our work, we're doing this for the generations to come, but we are also healing the generations that came before us. And so it's so powerful, and it's part of, it's part of our soul's journey, and it's the most important part of our soul's journey.
To heal ourselves and backwards and forwards, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And healing meaning bringing love into your life.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is what you're doing, which is what you're helping people do with your work and your creativity. So I want to share with people a magic lesson that they can incorporate based on this journey, this relationship journey. What magic lesson would you like to share?
So my favorite magic is to remember you are not alone, and that there is an energy that wants to work with you and co-create, and that energy is love. And so the lesson is to remember that guidance is always available, and it is the old saying of ask and you shall receive. So if you don't know what to do, if you're feeling stuck, ask for help, and ask just to be shown the next right step to take. You don't need to know the whole picture. I think as humans, we're so like, I just want to know, am I going to be, what's going to happen next? And it's like, no, you don't need to know the whole story. You just need to be guided to the next thing. So there's a few ways that I do this. And one of my favorites is to journal. And I will journal. Sometimes I use my non-dominant hand to ask the question, and then my dominant hand for the answer, or vice versa. And so I will create sacred space. So maybe do a little meditation before I start, light a candle, maybe do some mantras or whatever to get myself really grounded and present to the moment. And then I will ask a question, and I will say, so it will be, divine beloved, or whomever you need to address it to, the universe, God, goddess, whatever feels resonant for you. Please show me the next step to take on this, or whatever, give me an answer for this issue. And please write in my hand. And so then just start writing and see what comes. And I've never not been really surprised. It's always like, oh, and it's also like, this is absolutely, yes, this is the right answer for me at this moment.
I love that your magic lesson is about yourself, because that is the magic of relationships, is that you grow more into the energy of love. Mm-hmm. So I love that.
Nice.
Naomi, you're a treasure. So can you let people know how they can get in touch with you and all the things?
Absolutely. So I would the easiest way is to go to my website, which is naomisimpsonastrology.com or naomisimpsoncoaching.com. And all of the links to all of my social medias on the website, as well as I do have a free gift for people that describes their sun, moon, and rise, or sorry, not their sun, moon, and rising, their moon, Venus, and Mercury. And depending on what sign it's in, what it says about you. So they can explore what those planets mean and how they show up and what they have to say about you in relationship.
That's really interesting that you do that. Venus, which is what you love and really your self-love and what you attract and want to attract. Your moon being your inner world and your emotional nourishment. And Mercury, how you express yourself. Those are three key ingredients to a healthy relationship, because we're all about the sun sign with astrology, right?
Yeah.
In pop culture, right? But really, those are really important to know your love language and your loved one's love. That is your loved one's love language. Did I get that?
Yes. Success. Yes. Yeah. It is so important. And that's that whole, like, once we know, we can be speaking our love language all the time. And if our partner's love language is something different, they're not going to hear all those beautiful, loving acts that we are offering to them. They're not going to be receiving them because they're like, I'm just focused on the fact you're not speaking my love language.
Exactly. So I think it's really important. To me, this is more, I never read that book about the love languages, and because I read astrology, so that's what I do, and numerology, because it's important to know what makes you tick, what makes you happy, what you need to be happy, and also how it's maybe different for the people in your life, and to understand them. And any tool that we have to understand ourselves and each other can only bring more harmony into the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're keeping our hearts open for connection. And that's what we always have to come back to is, am I making an effort to make this connection more meaningful? Am I staying open?
Yeah.
It can be scary, but that's what being vulnerable is all about, is be acknowledging that you're feeling that way, but keeping that heart open.
I love that. So with an open heart, we thank you all for listening. And I thank you for being here, Naomi, and sharing your love and wisdom with us. And we both wish you a wonderful week ahead. Lots of love. Bye for now.